Michael Matheson. So you mentioned the hearing, top of the show, should just be wrapping up.
Yep.
This is the hit on Elias Pettersson.
Yep.
Pettersson, by the way.
It is Pettersson. He said that.
Confirmed.
To Dan Murphy.
Right.
Pre-game show.
Okay, so it's a board slam. Like, let's just be blunt about what this thing is, because we've seen it in plenty of games. It's a hit by Matheson, and it's a board slam. We've seen them before. Not perhaps this violent a board slam, but I think we've all seen board slams before. This is nothing new, and specifically, we see more of them since players aren't able to hit another player and pin them along the boards for a couple of seconds. Now it's catch and release. So we do see more board slams. Well, once upon a time, when you wanted to get a forward out of the play as a defenseman, you pinned him on the boards and you held him there. Now the way to get him out of the play after a hit is a board slam. Not the first time we've seen it. Happens all the time. But this one had devastating consequences. Mm-hmm. John, we'll start with you. What happens now?
Oh, well, first of all, and it is a tough one, because I think I've for the last 36 hours, I have polled more than a dozen people about whether this was a classic hockey play, whether it was crossing the line, how visibly hurt Pettersson was, what should that take a factor in this. Here's the one thing I would say is the National Hockey League is having a hearing for Mike Matheson today because Elias Pettersson is a star. That's why. And so any Vancouver Canuck fan who sits out there and says we never get any respect, you know what? The Vancouver Canucks and Pettersson are getting respect because he's a star, and they're trying to protect the stars. The original check was legal. The original check was fair. I shudder to think if it ever gets taken out of the game. The question becomes, is the extra push by Matheson to his shoulder, in my mind, and pushes Pettersson down and concusses Pettersson, creating an injury. What do you describe that? Is that intent to injure? How is that And I do think the league is really having a tough argument with this. I think there's a lot of people in both offices in Toronto, New York, that are wrestling with this and will argue with this. This will be a bigger conversation after the hearing today internally than it will be in the hearing.
100% agree with that.
So then that becomes the question of how do we manage and how do we protect Pettersson? It's not Mike Matheson's fault that this great player is 170 pounds.
One of the other things here that John touches on is there are two separate events that happen in the hit. And he's right. There's the body check. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find anyone's problem with that. That's cool. It's the slam that happens afterwards. Yeah. Now, is it legal to do that? No. But does it happen all the time and go unpenalized? Yes. If he's not injured, are we having this discussion?
No, we're not. It should have been.
So we're suspending based on an injury.
Well, no, we're having a hearing.
Sorry, I apologize. We're having a hearing based on an injury.
Yeah, and that, yes. And it goes back to trying to protect stars, which there's always been. It depends on which side of the ledger you are. Is that a good thing, protecting stars, or is that, that you're not protecting the run-of-the-mill hockey player?
Well, okay, so
Go, Gordy.
Well, twofold that way. You're right about the star thing, but also I'll throw a number out that I believe if he were to get 5 games this year, in 2017 it would have been 4, in 2016 it would have been 3, in 2015 it would have been 2. I mean, almost whatever it be. I mean, that's just the way the climate's changed. But the other part, whether star or not, there is a little bit of that oomph factor about the push down, so the guy's going to fall anyway.
Matheson's strong, Pettersson's small.
Yeah, so the guy's going to fall anyway. You gave him the little added oomph that way, and it's about things you can control and maybe have a reflex action that you used to do that you can't do anymore. I mean that may be the intent.
I think John's point about the slippery slope after this is the interesting one. This is not the last board slam we're going to see, guys.
No,
we're going to see board slams tonight. We're going to see board slams tomorrow. We're going to see board slams on Wednesday. Happens all the time. This one was just devastating. Excited for board slams.
I'll tell you what, and the guys in New York won't be happy when I say this, but they're off to a bad start. And I like George. George Peros is a really genuine person. We know him. We've worked with him.
Sure.
But this is what started with the Max Domi suspension and how Max Domi really wasn't suspended for being suspended because he only lost preseason games for games that he doesn't lose money for. they have never recovered. The group hasn't recovered very well since then.
First, I give them a mulligan on that one because they weren't going to give that 6+.
No, but you had to find a way to give him one game in the regular season.
That means 6+. Is that going to be a 6? That going to be a 6 or a 6+ penalty?
I don't know.
We're going back to talk about doing.
Go ahead. You wonder. So they've put themselves in a corner now. They have put themselves in a corner now with this one too, because in many ways there's a difficult. Where is the line? We always say they have to set the bar. They've set the bar. I mean, Mike Matheson is not Tom Wilson.
No.
And should not be treated like Tom Wilson. Is not a repeat offender. Mike Matheson was mad, by the way. I like hockey players that play mad. And Mike Matheson was, got beat in the corner, hit Pettersson legally, then pushed him down, and Pettersson got concussed. Are you protecting Matheson, or are you going to protect Pettersson? And I think that's the dilemma they're going to have in the office today. I really do.
One of the dilemmas too is, are we going to start suspending for pushes?
Well, again, that's what I'm talking. Well, I don't, but a push or whatever you want to call it, a little more than a push. But
no, I know it's a violent one.
But it starts with like what Tom Wilson just got 20 games for, and you go back to the David Booth hits and the Mark Savard hits, and
but the world changed since then.
Oh no, I know, but also,
and they've told the world, everybody the world.
So this might be the first step about that, whatever you want to call it, shove, that little oomph, that whatever. I don't know. That might be the part about it.
I think it happens. I think that's it. I think if you're George Parris, you're like, okay, the hockey part is the hit. The non-hockey part is what happened afterwards, and that's what we're going after.
Probably. I think that.
But the problem is that non-hockey part happens in hockey all the time. And that's where I think your point is a salient one, John. That, okay, what does that discussion mean afterwards? Let's say Matheson gets a single, okay? Or a double, like 1 or 2 games. Let's say he gets that. Let's just say, take a right, when he gets 1 game. Then what's the discussion afterwards?
The bar has been... And I don't mean this in a negative sense, but the bar has been lowered so much that I think that you can't have players worried about. This was not a hit to the head. It was unfortunate that Pettersson fell and was concussed. It was unfortunate that he's got a concussion. But you don't want to take physical play out of the game, and that's going to be the hard line. I mean, are we taking that much out of the game?